Hey everyone, welcome back. And in this podcast, I will be talking about the three ways of making money. And this is more important than ever because in June of 2020, when I am making this recording, a lot of people have already been reconsidering their money making options. Many people may have lost their jobs, and companies that used to be around and do seemingly well may not be around. So it's a new opportunity for humanity that includes you and me to think about how we make money. And the three ways of making money would consist of a 3D, a three-dimensional world. That's a very physical, very strategy-oriented energy. Number two would be psychological. So you would use a psychological energy to make money. And the number three is what we call spiritual way of making money. And I'll get into every single category because I imagine that if you're listening to my podcast and you've been following me, then you are probably at a turning point in your life where you are reconsidering your options, where you really want to step up your game, where you want to create a better outcome for your family and for yourself. So it's good to have you here. So let's dive in. So the first category is called the 3D, three-dimensional world. It's very physical. It's lacking awareness of the psychology and the universal laws. And a lot of people are here. Billions of people are still here. And what we feel today, what we see today is exactly an opportunity and also an energetic push to get people out of this very limited perspective from the 3D world. So people in this 3D model, they typically work hard. They are not aware of the higher laws, the universal laws. And they quite often don't understand that their subconscious psychological factors influence their level of success. So they tend to be focusing on the work, the physical work, and as long as it works for them and as long as it keeps them happy and blissful, there's nothing wrong with it. But likely those people are not listening to this podcast. If you have been this individual who worked hard, tried a bunch of different things, and it's still not cutting it, I will continue telling you why and what you need to learn so that you could start shifting your mindset, shifting your psychology, and then be able to start manifesting the results that you want. Now, for those people that are in the 3D world and are not exactly happy, they need to understand that also the ego is a very, very tricky instrument, and quite often it fools people into believing that in order to be successful and even to be perceived as a good person or a worthy person or a good example, a good leader, a good mentor, they have to exhaust themselves and they have to live self-sacrificial lifestyles. But all of these things are very deeply buried. They are not obvious. And of course, the moment you start thinking about them, your own ego gets very, very agitated and starts giving you negative emotions because it does not want to be exposed. These are ancient energy patterns. These are ancient thinking patterns. But unfortunately, the people who pay the price is you and me. So it's time to really get to know your subconscious world. Part of it is the ego, how it wants to give you a strategy that is very, very ancient, very old, and leads to nothing but burnout. So people who live in this three-dimensional, egoic, self-exhausting burnout patterns, these self-sacrificial lifestyles, they quite often become a victim to illness and even bankruptcy, and other challenging life circumstances come about which they cannot consciously understand. So, some people, as I mentioned, can succeed in this three-dimensional world, but more and more humans, and I'm talking about billions, are expected now to step up our game and start learning how to shift out of this old energy pattern and then create a better life for ourselves as well as for the collective. The whole thing to this three-dimensional consciousness is the belief that in order for you to make money, you need a job. All right. And don't get me wrong, if you are building up your business, if you are willing and interested in expanding, the job that you take temporarily could be exactly what you need so that you could bring in the necessary resources and the cash to fuel the new business that you're building. But what happens in this energy pattern is that these people in the 3D world don't understand that their psychology determines the amount of money they can receive, they can make. Okay, so the level of consciousness determines the lifestyle and the level of success. And here's the kicker, and that's why I'm telling you guys this, that If you work hard, and you could work hard as you want, but if you have junk beliefs and crappy beliefs in your subconscious about yourself, about money, and about other people and about the world, which you could see plenty of examples of, people are running around and hating and discussing, and most of them are completely ignorant. And because they have crappy beliefs about themselves, they have low self-esteem, they don't understand the first thing about the laws that govern our universe, and therefore they just are ending up in frustration and repeated and predictable failure. So these crappy beliefs, have to go. You cannot afford to have them about yourself and about money and about the world. And that's exactly what leads me to the next level, is when you now finally understand that your psychology determines your level of success. Then the second category I want to talk about is your psychological level of making money. Now, people who are at this level, they already have realized that they need to create themselves a source of income that they can rely on. So it's not going to come from a job, it's not going to come from or occupation type circumstance, because those are very volatile, especially today. And these people at the psychological level also understand that true wealth and true freedom can never come from a job. Therefore, it has to come from something that they create. And I mentioned this before. Of course, if you are building up a business and you take a job, maybe a temporary job, a 6-month job or 3-month job or 1-year job, whatever, just to fuel, your business and have the funds, that's perfectly fine. But the consciousness and the mindset here is very different. Now the job doesn't serve as sort of an escape mechanism, as sort of a cover-up story. It serves as a stepping stone. It serves as a conscious step in this unfoldment and the evolution of your money and the business consciousness. So in this psychological category, which is the already better and higher level of awareness and consciousness than the 3D, they can and have achieved great success. But you will find that deep down, many of them, I'm talking about people who make $100 million a year, still fear failure. They still have all kinds of unconscious, unresolved fears and unreleased beliefs and whatnot. But they're running also scarcity patterns. And scarcity means that unconsciously, people believe that there isn't enough. Scarcity also creates competition. And competition is a very strange, egoic, and ego structure. Hardly anybody in the world knows about this because, there's the healthy competition, all this, it's all crap, right? But what people don't understand is this is the way of the ego. That's the old world that actually is falling apart today. So if you're scratching your head and don't understand what's really happening, it's this old way of the ego, this old 3D world, this deceptive junk that we have lived in for thousands of years is just vanishing. Okay, so this is why the people that understand that they can step up their game and learn and figure out what is in the unconscious that is creating their circumstances, what they need to shift, then they will definitely stand a chance. So in the second category, I mentioned this is the psychological band. And because people still are in this competitive mode, they still have a lot of unhealed issues, they do this competition thing, which actually says this, and this might hit home for you too, or might feel like a punch in the gut, but I want you to become aware of this because otherwise it has the power to destroy you in the long run. Being in a competition mode, and again, that's an ego structure, the belief behind it is that in order for somebody to win, someone else has to lose. Now, this is really, really interesting because if you win at the cost of putting someone else in pain or causing someone else to fail or end up in a suboptimal circumstance, that actually has very severe long-term consequences. It's called karma. So we don't know a lot of these things, right? I mean, I do. That's why I'm making the podcast so that you can learn. But these are not things that are commonly taught in universities, right? Why? Because they don't know it. And this is your chance and your obligation as my listener and as a human being who's building a worthy life to really start learning these things. Because what we think is cool actually isn't all that cool. What we think is going on isn't really going on. What you think is the right thing to do or say isn't really the right thing to do. So 99% of what most people think and believe about life is pretty much inverted. All right? So as I said, people in the second category, in the psychological category, are fairly wealthy and doing really well, but things still are not effortless. Okay? Mentioned that a lot of them are in scarcity mode. They use manipulation, they use deception to get to their money, and simply because they don't have the higher consciousness to understand that there are laws that govern the universe. Okay, these same people have all kinds of other unconscious fears about losing what they already achieved and what they have, and you have it too. As long as you have the fear of losses and it's stronger than your fear of intention to create and bring something new to the world, then the fear of loss your ego will hold on to and will exhaust you. And when people are living these unconscious loops, these unconscious fears about losing and fighting and competing and all that stuff, okay, it takes a toll on their health, and eventually it will take a toll on their money situation and also on their relationship situation. Money is a symbol of your consciousness. Okay? So that leads me now to the new way, which is the third way, the spiritual way. And this is how things are supposed to be. But most people do not understand this because they've never learned this, because it's never been taught, and it's not your fault. This spiritual way of making money is the new way and the effortless way to create prosperity in your life. But it has three sides to this. And if you want to operate on this spiritual plane, you need to know the previous two planes. You need to understand that if you are anywhere on those planes, the 3D or the psychological plane that I had mentioned, that all it really means is that you are now ready to evolve and ready to learn how to transition into this third category called the spiritual way of making money. And inside this third category, there's three additional steps, and I will describe them here. And one very important thing, the first important thing, if you want to really start living and making money spiritually, which is effortless, and have your health and wealth and abundance all at once, you have to let go of your non-beneficial thought patterns. Now, most people have thousands of them. These non-beneficial thinking patterns are in the way of manifesting and receiving abundance effortlessly. The keyword here is receiving. Most people put out way too much energy. They meditate, they affirm, and all that stuff, but they actually have massive subconscious and unconscious resistance to receiving. And here I'm talking about a lot of the deeply buried unconscious limiting beliefs, your unconscious internal conflicts, which happen between belief structures inside your mind, and also there are hidden and non-beneficial identities, which create another avalanche of conflicts in people, negative emotions, and also push success and prosperity away. Now, like Emerson said, you need to get your bloated sense of nothingness out of the way. You need to get your bloated sense of nothingness out of the way. In other words, your ego, which consists of this subconscious trickster, it's holding on to your internal conflicts. It really is holding on to your junk beliefs and your conflicts about yourself and about the world. You need to let this go, okay? That actually leads to this bloated sense of nothingness. That's why people just talk, zero action, and therefore hardly any achievement. And it's our job as humans and the next generation leadership is to start doing things and stop just talking. All right. So when you do the subconscious change work, that also consists of your mental and emotional work, that's when magic begins to happen in your life. So that was number one, which was to let go of your non-beneficial thinking patterns if you want to achieve the spiritual way of effortlessly making money. Number two is what you need to do in order to manifest money and prosperity from the spiritual plane is to install beneficial beliefs and beneficial identities so that your new life can morph to the new you. And what I mean here is many people are doing this to some degree. This is where people affirm. This is where people say mantras, I am rich and I am wealthy and all sorts of other subconscious ways of installing this. But if you only do this, and if you don't do step number one, which is you eliminate your limiting beliefs and you eliminate your internal conflicts and you work on your non-beneficial identities, this will become an increasingly more and more difficult thing to do. And this is where I see a lot of people fail. Like, you could affirm all you want, but if you have all kinds of negating beliefs, could be your ancestral patterns who didn't do all that well. What are you affirming? You're affirming something that is a very pushy energy, And yet your unconscious ancient stories will just eventually say no to you, no to the results you want, and boom, there you have it, back to that old stuck state between kind of like the 3D and the psychological levels. And then your ego can like point the finger at the outside and say, you see, I told you so, it sucks. And you don't have the results because you don't understand how to remove those limiting beliefs. So very important, guys, that when you want to achieve success, you absolutely have to understand that you have to remove the resistance and the past limitations that goes for your family patterns and your ancestral patterns. Otherwise, you'll be fighting them all the way through. You could see people who only do affirmations. I can watch them, look at them, and I can tell already like hundreds and hundreds of beliefs and conflicts that they are fighting. And eventually those conflicts will win and will wipe them out. All right. So then the third part, if you want to become a really awesome and effortless manifester from the spiritual plane, this is the third thing that you need to do, is you got to do the work, which means that you have to set goals and you have to actually physically start going towards what you want. All right. So again, you could set goals all you want. You could mantra and affirm all you want. If you don't remove your past childhood and ancestral beliefs and resistances, these will have a limited shelf life and you will exhaust yourself. So step number 3 is you got to set these goals, start physically going toward them, and also you have to feel how that character would feel when it achieves or he or she achieves it. All right. So whatever character traits or identity you need for you to be successful, you need to start acting it, living it, feeling it, and being it. Okay. This is where, and like I see, a lot of people fail yet again. That's why a lot of people manifest and then all of a sudden it's taken away because of these unresolved internal conflicts. So when you are in the spiritual plane and you operate from there, that means that you have done a lot of healing on yourself. That means that you removed all of your internal resistances to the opposition that you've been bringing with you. And by the way, it's all by design. You're supposed to know of this because you can't just be like drop down and expect to know that. You really have to put conscious effort into it. Okay. And in this plane, in the spiritual plane, this is where the universe is taking care of things for you. It's doing the heavy lifting while you keep activating the things that you want to manifest in your physical life. And you, as I mentioned, you are taking action steps towards what you want. And you also have the mental and the psychological and spiritual attitude that will influence your feelings. And when you feel good, when you have the right attitude, when you act welcoming to the opportunity, that means that you are receiving exactly what you want. All right. So if you guys follow these 3 steps, then you will be able to operate in the new world, in this new unfolding 5th-dimensional world. And you have to understand that there are spiritual laws that create absolute prosperity and abundance. And when you embrace them, then you can let go of your old fight. You could let go of your struggles. And that means that you will be able to manifest. You're going to be able to be joyous, heal, feel good in your physical body. You could say goodbye to illnesses. You could say goodbye to all sorts of other conditions and just truly operate in flow and abundance. But you need to develop the consciousness to be here. And without studying this and learning it from the right mentor, it is virtually impossible to achieve this on your own. And this is yet again another thing I see where people fail. But when you learn these principles and you follow the steps, your prosperity and abundance is guaranteed. The universe will always take care of you. You will not have to fight. You will not have to work hard, which, by the way, working hard is just another ego mask to hide additional deep wounds inside the subconscious world. All right? And what I have described in the spiritual way of operating is exactly how nature operates. You see, a tree doesn't have to struggle to be acknowledged as a tree. A lion doesn't give a damn about the opinion of the sheep, right? Humans are the only ones who operate on this conflicted plane of consciousness, which cuts them off the flow and then creates pain, scarcity, and frustration. But when you follow this formula I shared in this podcast, then step by step, you will be able to upgrade your consciousness and you can start operating from a spiritual plane where life is fulfilling and effortless. And I want you to know that all of these statements that I have made in this podcast are not dogmatic or religious at all, because these have been mentioned by many philosophers for thousands of years, and many amazing masters have been saying it. Jesus included, Plato included, Nietzsche included. This is something that we've been asked to do, and this is our chance. It's 2020, and it is time to step up our game and create a new leadership, a new humanity where things actually begin to work, where we can actually start seeing our own value, bringing it to the marketplace, and reshape our unity, reshape our community so that you can start creating what you are really good at. He can create exactly what he's good at, and she can create what she's really good at. And this is called the new 5D world. All right, guys, this is what I teach in my advanced seminars. Go to amindinstitute.com and check out our certification programs, then book a call. And as always, if this resonated with you, then go ahead and subscribe, leave a comment, and then share also with people that you care about so that we could build a better world together. Catch you guys next week.